They sang happy birthday like they meant it, clapping, smiling, a sparkler cake lit like a stage performance. And then, just minutes later, her name echoed through the meeting room speakers. Claire Hastings, we thank you for your service. Your position has been eliminated. The applause hadn't even died down before the HR rep handed her a white envelope and a strained smile. Camera still flashing from the birthday cake. No one seemed to notice the air drain from Claire's face. No one except her. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She left the building holding her own file folder like a trophy, quiet, cold, and with every step, sharpening something inside her that no one could see yet. That evening, the lights in her apartment stayed off. The quiet let her replay it all. The smirks that weren't kind, the applause that felt too rehearsed, and the sudden vacancy of her role just a week after being told she was the future of the firm. She opened her laptop, not to job hunt, but to read through old emails, agendas, meeting recordings. Each word they had said echoed differently now, hollowed and mean. The fall had already happened. Now, Claire listened for the echo, every distorted hint of what came before. There had been smiles, too many smiles. Kevin had grinned too wide when she presented quarterly gains that should have made her indispensable. Amelia had brushed off her question about the upcoming promotion review, eyes flicking nervously to the conference room glass. Claire hadn't noticed then, but now she did. The way she was left off email chains, the half-laughs when she entered a room, the silence that followed her bright ideas. Alone, scrolling through a digital past she once trusted, Claire began to understand. The knife was not in her back. It had always been there, she just hadn't felt the twist. So she dug deeper. Past schedules, meeting invites, versions of documents she hadn't authored but bore her name. The internal directory showed one thing: a recent transfer approval, Amelia stepping into a new hybrid role that looked eerily similar to the one Claire had been promised. And attached to it, a glowing recommendation signed by Kevin. The betrayal wasn't vague anymore. It had addresses, dates, names. She stared at the approval chain, her eyes resting on the line. Final approval. Claire Hastings. She had signed her own replacement without realizing it. One document stood out misfiled in the shared cloud drive. It was a coffee order. Receipt. Nothing more. But the wrong name was listed as the account holder, hers, and the transaction was time-stamped for a day she hadn't been in the office. Beneath it, a forwarded chain between Kevin and Amelia, laughing over how easy it was to use her credentials for scheduling access. Claire read it once, twice, and then she saved it. That wasn't just a mistake, it was their mistake. And she knew what to do with it. So she smiled. She sent congratulatory messages. She commented publicly on Amelia's promotion with warmth and grace. She answered Kevin's final HR emails with perfect punctuation and zero emotion. She became the version of herself they thought they'd buried, pleasant, docile over it. And behind that mask, she started recording, quietly noting every instance of misconduct, every shady off-book deal Kevin passed off as strategic resource shifting. She started tracking the people they ignored, the ones they manipulated. Her silence made them comfortable. Her comfort made them weak. Claire mapped it all out. The promotion timeline had always been a lie. The position she was promised had never been hers to begin with. Kevin had dangled it for a year while building a case against her behind closed doors. And Amelia? She was the chosen successor from the start. Claire gathered screenshots, internal review discrepancies, time-stamped changes to her own reports. None of this was sloppiness, it was orchestration. But orchestration leaves fingerprints. Claire now held every one of them. Some of her colleagues were quieter than they used to be. Jack, who once vented to her over lunch, now avoided her messages. Priya stopped liking her posts, but they hadn't blocked her. Not yet. And in that lingering connection, Claire saw it not loyalty to Kevin and Amelia, but fear. The kind of fear that came from knowing more than you admitted. She watched closely, noting who shifted their alliances, who knew what and when. Friends? Maybe not. But pawns? Certainly, every spreadsheet Kevin doctored, Every red flag HR buried became a line in the blueprint Claire sketched in her notebook. She outlined timelines, predictable patterns of fraud, favoritism, and financial misconduct. She didn't just want justice, she wanted precision, and she wanted it public. But not yet, not until every trap was perfectly set. Until each player stepped willingly into place, a leaked congratulatory email accidentally sent to an old investor group, a LinkedIn post congratulating Amelia on a title she hadn't officially received yet. Claire tested the waters. Would they bite? Oh, they did. Kevin publicly confirmed it, and in doing so, he bypassed HR's embargoed announcement schedule. That misstep, documented, sent to a former colleague in compliance. The bait was working. Their confidence was growing, and so was their vulnerability. Claire uploaded her first payload to a burner account, a data packet disguised as a whistleblower submission revealing Kevin's padded vendor reports. The email bounced through encrypted nodes before reaching the firm's risk officer. No name attached, but the information was irrefutable. Claire didn't watch it unfold, she already knew the fuse was lit. She just waited. Internal whispers erupted, first rumors of audits, questions about expense reports. Kevin panicked. He blamed IT, then interns, then Amelia. Each misstep widened the cracks. Claire watched from the sidelines, invisible and calm. Amelia, once smug, began to distance herself. Their alliance was thinning. Claire didn't need to strike again, their fear was doing it for her. It was a Friday when Claire walked into the same bar she once visited with Kevin and Amelia. He spotted her first, tried to act unfazed. She ordered a drink, smiled, heard. "There's an audit," she said casually, stirring her glass. Tough timing, he laughed too quickly, then excused himself. But in that brief exchange, she had seen it. Sweat on his brow, the twitch in his jaw. He knew. Monday morning, the firm's inboxes buzzed with the news. An investigative journalist had published a full expose: fraud, manipulation, internal bullying, anonymous sources, documented evidence, quotes that came from board members who suddenly remembered Claire's name. HR launched an immediate review. Kevin was suspended. Amelia's promotion was frozen. Their reputations, once untouchable, crumbled in real time. No one suspected Claire. She walked the halls again, retrieving personal belongings from the cubicle she never expected to see again. Only now, people looked up when she passed. Some nodded, some avoided her gaze. Either way, she was seen. Not pitied, not blamed, but seen. The same walls that once echoed with applause for others now held silence for her. A week later, Kevin received a letter at home. Anonymous, 1 page. No threats, no cruelty. Just one sentence. "You built your throne on sand." Folded inside was a copy of the coffee receipt, the one with Claire's name, used without permission. A final reminder of the moment they thought she wouldn't notice. Now, they couldn't forget. Claire didn't celebrate. She didn't post. She simply stopped. The war was over. The field burned. The applause gone. What remained was her own peace. Quiet, earned, clean. Now she writes her own plans. Not in shadows, not in response to betrayal, but in pursuit of something better. She left revenge behind her, not because it didn't matter, but because it was complete. And when she opens the door to her new office, her name on the glass, her terms on the paper, she doesn't look back. The applause she hears now isn't fake. It's not even loud. It's inside. And this time, it belongs to her. He said it casually, as if betrayal were a boardroom strategy. "Trust me, it's just business." That's what Marcus always said when decisions didn't make sense. When someone suddenly vanished from the team, when Claire's ideas were pitched back to her as if they'd always belonged to someone else. Back then, she nodded along, still tethered to the belief that mentorship was protection, that loyalty would be rewarded, not weaponized. But now, those words echoed like a warning she hadn't heard in time. A year earlier, she had stayed late more nights than she could count, perfecting presentations, crunching numbers, holding her breath through back-to-back meetings, thinking, that excellence alone would be her shield. The promotion was never in question. Marcus had said so himself. "You're a star," he told her. "It's only a matter of time." So when the announcement came and the title went to Jeremy, a polished smooth talker who fumbled his own metrics, Claire smiled through the applause. No questions, no complaints, but something inside her shifted. Jeremy's desk filled with accolades Claire had built. Reports she authored now bore his initials. Presentations she refined were suddenly a team effort, and Marcus ensured the credit landed in all the right inboxes, just never hers. It wasn't immediate, this erasure. It was patient, surgical, and it worked. Colleagues stopped looking to her in meetings. Even her quiet victories began to feel like shared property, handed up the ladder without recognition. And when she tried to speak up, Marcus would smile, gently correcting her recollection like a seasoned mentor shaping a star pupil. "You're doing great, Claire. Let's not worry about the credit game." At first, she believed him. Believed in the grooming disguised as guidance. Believed the flattery had substance, that he was teaching her to play the long game. But beneath the charm, his hand was on the lever. Every compliment concealed a recalibration. He was shaping perception, and slowly, she was being rewritten not as a leader, but as an assistant. Useful, replaceable. Then came the small slips. A scheduled meeting that never appeared on her calendar. A report she knew she completed marked as missing. Numbers she hadn't touched somehow wrong. Marcus always had an explanation, gentle, understanding. "It happens. We'll fix it." But she saw it now. These weren't mistakes. They were steps. Steps toward discrediting her, isolating her, priming her for the fall. The whispers in the hallway. The quiet laughter that stopped when she entered. By the time she was told her role was no longer aligned with strategic goals, the groundwork had already been laid. They handed her the exit like a formality. A process they pretended was impartial, but she saw through it. It wasn't protocol. It was fear. Marcus had built a kingdom on borrowed competence, and Claire had become a liability too capable, too aware, too close to truths he'd rather bury. Her departure wasn't business. It was a cover-up in a suit and tie. He thought she wouldn't fight back, that he'd broken her. But Marcus didn't understand what silence really meant. For 30 days, she disappeared. No posts, no messages, not a single email opened. Claire left the office carrying only her silence, but inside, something louder was building. She walked through grief like it was a tunnel, and by the time she reached the other side, grief had calcified into grit. She wasn't broken. She was ready. She pulled everything from memory, first dates, discrepancies, digital trails. Then she hunted through backup drives and shared folders still synced to her personal cloud. Claire didn't just want to prove her worth. She wanted the truth. The exact moments Marcus twisted her efforts into liabilities. Every edit he made to her files. Every calendar change. Every blind copied message that moved the chessboard without her knowing. She didn't rage. She archived. The blueprint began on her kitchen table, handwritten notes, color-coded tabs. She mapped the exact timeline of her erasure, the pattern of how he built others up by tearing her down. Jeremy hadn't risen on merit, he had been fed, groomed to be the visible face while Claire worked in the shadows. She connected the dots. Marcus's involvement in every performance review, the HR conversations that shifted tone right before her performance concerns surfaced. What had once felt like misfortune now looked like design. Claire didn't need to rebuild her past. She needed to dismantle his future. And now, she had everything she needed to begin. Claire didn't disappear. Not really. After the firing, the world saw silence, a vanished nameplate, a ghosted LinkedIn profile, but beneath that quiet, she moved with purpose. There was no rage, no public statement, no last word, just absence. Calculated, sharpened, and alive, her apartment became her war room. Each night, while the city turned off its lights, she turned on her screen and began digging. She traced Marcus's career like a blood trail, resumes padded with borrowed glory, promotions won through silence and sacrifice never his own. She found stories that hadn't made headlines, but left ruins behind, quiet firings, vanished talent, mentorships that ended in black marks. Every late-night search revealed more the interns he discarded, the ideas he repackaged, the careers derailed without explanation. His cruelty was never explosive, it was professional, polished, systematic. And for years, no one had stopped him. Until now, the more she uncovered, the more the mask began to crack, especially when she revisited moments she once dismissed. Claire remembered the meetings he hijacked, steering conversations so subtly it felt like leadership. How he encouraged her to share rough drafts, only to refine them in her absence and present them as his own. There were the one-on-one chats, where he'd reshape her memories, make her question her instincts. "That's not how I remember it," he'd say every time she tried to stand her ground. It wasn't feedback, it was erasure. And now, looking back, the pattern was unmistakable. She didn't stew in it. Claire funneled that recognition into motion. While the world thought she was recovering, she was refining. She took online courses in finance, digital marketing, AI system skills Marcus never bothered with because manipulation had always worked better for him. She worked through dawns, building something from scratch. Not just a plan, an ecosystem, a foundation. Every spreadsheet, every strategic draft, every tool she mastered was another piece placed with purpose. She was crafting not just vengeance, but a future immune to people like him. That's when the messages started coming. Quiet pings from names she hadn't seen in years. Some hesitated. Others got straight to the point. He did the same too. "Me? You're not the only one. I thought I was crazy." Former employees, overlooked analysts, people who'd walked away in shame, thinking they'd failed when really they'd been targeted. Claire listened, connected the stories, and saw it clearly. Marcus hadn't built his success, he'd scorched earth around him and stood on the ashes. And now, the ashes wanted fire. She didn't rally them. She didn't need to. They were already watching, already bitter. All she did was help them find each other. A message here, a document there, enough to reawaken the injustice and remind them that silence had never healed them. Marcus had built his empire by isolating his victims, but now they were aligned. Meanwhile, Marcus, blind to the storm rising, continued burning bridges. He snapped at board members, dismissed senior staff, forced changes that didn't make sense to anyone except him. The charm he once wielded with ease had soured into arrogance. Partners began pulling back. Investors paused, and the whispers started first in conference calls, then in closed-door meetings. Questions about leadership, culture, ethics. Claire heard them all, and while he stumbled, her startup began to rise. No logos, no press, just strategic partnerships built in shadows. Claire had designed it to solve a problem Marcus never bothered to understand, quietly absorbing clients his company had long ignored. They didn't know her name, not yet, but her influence was growing, and her reach extended into places he had once claimed as untouchable. While he postured on stage, she redefined the game board beneath his feet. She made every move with surgical precision. No emotion, no ego, just method. Every investor she spoke to was someone he'd burned. Every product she developed solved a problem he'd ignored. She didn't chase headlines. She wrote histories his collapse drafted behind the curtain. One silent decision at a time. Then came the final step. An email, polite, professional, an invitation to a casual conversation with a potential investor. Marcus didn't recognize the name. He didn't bother researching it. He walked into that room thinking it was just another pitch, another moment to control. But she was there. He froze, just for a second. Claire smiled, not out of satisfaction, out of certainty. He tried to play it cool, cracked a joke, feigned confusion, but she didn't bite. "This isn't a pitch," she said. "It's an exit interview. Yours." The investor watched in silence as Claire laid out a simple story. A pattern of manipulation, the stolen ideas, the crumbled careers. Documents backed every claim. Names were named. Records were shown. The air in the room changed. Marcus tried to interrupt, to explain, to correct her memory. But this time, no one listened. His words fell into a silence that didn't fear him anymore. When she stood, he stayed seated like a man who finally understood gravity. Claire walked away without looking back. She didn't need to see his collapse. By the end of the week, news of his unexpected resignation swept through the industry. His legacy was reduced to footnotes and whispers. The empire he built on lies had no foundation left. Claire didn't celebrate. She didn't post. She simply returned to her work stronger, focused, free. Revenge hadn't consumed her. It had refined her. And as her company quietly climbed to everything his could never reach, Claire finally understood what success really meant. Never shouting, never settling, just becoming the storm they never saw coming. The first headline cracked the surface. A quiet report buried deep in a finance journal, questioning discrepancies in expense reports and budget approvals tied to Marcus Hill's signature. It was small enough to ignore unless you'd been watching for it. Claire had been watching. More reports followed. Then came the whistleblower letter, anonymously submitted to a board member who had once been Marcus's ally. Claire hadn't written it, but she had made sure the right people had the right pieces. The web had always existed. She'd simply lit the edges, one by one. His carefully constructed defenses collapsed. A former accountant spoke out. An old partner revealed doctored figures. Then someone leaked screenshots, emails that painted a picture far worse than simple mismanagement, fraud, embezzlement, manipulation of performance metrics. Every revelation chipped away at his empire's foundation. And Claire, she said nothing. She didn't have to. By the time it hit mainstream headlines, Marcus was already a name people avoided. Articles circulated rapidly. The fall of a visionary. Fraud allegations rock Hale Enterprises. Even the most loyal executives, those who had once mimicked his tone and posture, scrambled to delete old endorsements. Silence became the only strategy left. Investors fled. Board members resigned. His name, once gilded in LinkedIn praise and keynote invites, became a toxic whisper in hallways. Claire watched the storm unfold not with glee, but with a surgeon's detachment. There was still more to build. Her company, unassuming and quiet until now, began to gather attention. Not from flashy ads or press releases, but from results. Clients praised its precision. Partners trusted its leadership. And without meaning to, the industry began comparing her model to his wreckage. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Funding offers increased. Opportunities that once went to Marcus now landed at Claire's door. And still, she remained steady. No interviews, no boasts, just progress. It was late one evening when she opened her inbox and saw an email from recruitment. Some flagged by HR software for executive-level experience. The name, bold and centered at the top, made her still for a moment. Marcus Hale. It was real, desperate and cloaked in language he never would have used in his prime. Willing to contribute, open to feedback, seeking a fresh start. Claire read it twice, not with shock, but with cold amusement. He didn't know. He couldn't know. Not yet. She didn't delete it. Instead, she forwarded it with a short note. Let's bring him in. I'd like to conduct the interview myself. There was no malice in the message, just clarity. The meeting was set for a Friday. The waiting room was quiet. The receptionist greeted him politely, unaware of history's weight passing through the door. Marcus wore a forced smile and a suit that didn't fit like it once did. He still carried the remnants of arrogance in his walk, but it faltered slightly when he stepped into the conference room and saw her. For the briefest moment, his face betrayed him. Then he laughed, trying to mask the panic with charm. Claire, he said, as though they were old colleagues. Didn't expect to see you here. She returned the smile. We like to stay involved in hiring decisions, especially for key roles. He sat cautiously. His fingers tapped the edge of the table, searching for control he no longer had. Claire opened the folder in front of her and glanced at his RSUM, not because she needed to, but because it gave her the pause she wanted. Then she looked up. "Let's talk about your experience." He flinched. Just enough. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't accuse. Her questions were precise, clinical. Why did he leave his last role? What was the nature of the financial concerns mentioned in the press? How would he handle a team that distrusted leadership? Marcus stumbled through answers, sweat gathering at his brow. Gone was the man who could twist any narrative. Claire let the silence after each reply stretch, giving weight to every flaw he exposed, and then she asked the final question, "What would you say is your greatest professional regret?" He tried to speak, stopped, then offered something hollow about trusting the wrong people. Claire nodded slowly, closed the folder, and stood. "We'll be in touch." She left him there seated, unraveling. Smaller than she remembered, he had walked into that room expecting another opportunity. What he received was something far more honest. The soundless, undeniable truth that he had built nothing that could survive the truth, and Claire, composed and untouchable, had only needed one meeting to show him exactly what he had lost forever. Marcus Hale had once ruled his world with unchecked confidence, but now he found himself standing in a small, nondescript office across town, the offer he never imagined before him. Claire's voice was calm and measured as she laid it out, a position far removed from the heights he once commanded. It was low-ranking, low-paying, and most of all, deliberately beneath the dignity he had cultivated for years. The irony wasn't lost on her, but she said nothing. She simply watched as he processed the truth quietly unfolding. The role came, disguised as charity, a chance to rebuild his fractured reputation, a hands-on experience to regain footing in the industry. But beneath the generous language was a calculated measure of poetic justice. This wasn't mercy. It was a mirror, a controlled environment where Marcus's fall would be unmistakable, yet carefully managed so that every slight, every task, chipped away at the illusion of his former self. The weight of his pride threatened to crush him, but desperation silenced it. Cornered and broke, Marcus swallowed his ego and accepted the offer. His acceptance was not victory. It was a leash tightened with every word spoken in that quiet office. He stepped into the role blind to the truth that his freedom was an illusion, carefully wrapped in opportunity. Soon, the reality of his new existence settled around him like a cold fog. He found himself beneath the interns, relegated to menial chores that stripped away any remnant of reverence. Cleaning messes, fetching coffee, filing papers, tasks once deemed unworthy by the man who had ordered others to perform them. The same faces that had once looked up nervously now regarded him with indifferent eyes. The once feared titan was now invisible, swallowed by the hum of low murmurs and clacking keyboards, yet in this invisibility lay a silent truth. Every nod of acknowledgement toward Claire, every mundane task Marcus executed, reinforced an unspoken hierarchy. The team's subtle glances and quiet conversations spoke volumes. Power had shifted, and Marcus was no longer at the center. He was a shadow observed but ignored, a relic of arrogance now rendered obsolete. Meanwhile, Claire's own company flourished. Without fanfare or ostentation, her leadership attracted respect and loyalty that Marcus could never buy or command. Her calm presence became the backbone of a thriving enterprise, the quiet success standing in stark contrast to his whispered failures. Marcus watched from the sidelines, unable to interfere, forced to confront the fact that he had lost more than just a title. He had lost the trust and allegiance he once took for granted. One afternoon, an order came down, a seemingly innocuous task, yet laden with bitter symbolism. Marcus was asked to buy cupcakes for a team member's birthday celebration. Simple, ordinary cupcakes, the kind he had once dismissed as trivial distractions from real work. The task hit like a cold slap, a full-circle moment where the trivial now marked his place. Claire's voice came over the intercom with detached clarity. "Just leave it on the table." Marcus carried the cupcakes through the office, eyes lowered, heart stilled by the weight of silence. She never looked up, never offered a word beyond the command. The quietness was deliberate, a refined revenge that screamed louder than any accusation. In that silence, she delivered a message far clearer than any outburst. Power was not given, it was earned, and he had lost his claim to both. The lesson was complete. The empire had crumbled, the king dethroned not by violence or spectacle, but by the steady, unyielding force of dignity reclaimed and patience perfected. Claire didn't need to shout. She simply let the silence speak, and in that void, her victory echoed endlessly. Marcus's world had crumbled beyond repair. Stripped of power and pride, he drifted through days like a ghost, reduced to little more than a shadow of the man he once was. His empire lay in ruins, built on arrogance and deception, now nothing but fractured memories. Every step forward felt precarious, the very ground beneath him uncertain. The man who had commanded rooms and bowed knees now struggled for scraps of survival, haunted by the echo of his own downfall. Meanwhile, Claire moved with quiet strength that was unmistakable. Her leadership no longer needed to shout or prove itself. It simply was. Each decision she made, each challenge she met, was a testament to the power of calm resolve. There was no bitterness in her victories, only the steady grace of someone who understood that true strength was built in silence, not spectacle. Her company thrived because she led not with fury but with unwavering purpose. Among the team, an unspoken truth wove itself through the fabric of their daily lives. Everyone knew the story behind Marcus's fall, but no one uttered it aloud. Loyalty formed not from words but from a shared understanding, a quiet respect that grew from witnessing Claire's resilience. The history they carried remained locked away, a silent bond that made their unity unbreakable. One morning, the office received a letter. Marcus's resignation. It arrived without fanfare, no dramatic announcements or final outbursts, just a simple note of acceptance. The letter was a quiet surrender, a final gesture from a man who had lost everything but still clung to some remnants of dignity. No excuses, no anger, only the acknowledgement that the time had come to step away. Claire signed the letter without hesitation, her pen moving smoothly across the page. She didn't speak of it, didn't make a show of closure. Instead, she placed the letter down and moved forward, eyes fixed firmly on the future. The past, with all its pain and betrayal, was now behind her, a chapter closed without regret or lingering resentment. Her revenge had never been about firing Marcus. It was about something far greater. Success had spoken for her, louder than any confrontation ever could. In that silence, the final truth was clear. She didn't need to fight him back. She had already won. The quiet power of triumph, the strength born from perseverance, had delivered the last, unspoken word, one that would echo long after the dust settled.